What's up, guys? This is Sammy Geek back here with a quick video, and it's the weekend, so it's time to drop some more EV9 content for you guys. What I wanted to share today was a little bit on the infotainment system, or I should say on the Meridian sound system that this guy has. And so what I'm going to do, I'm actually really not going to play any music for you guys because you're not going to really be able to tell how it sounds. But I'm going to do my best to describe my experience with this car. So I do want to set the stage a little bit with this car having the Meridian sound system. And what I've had in the past, just to kind of compare this to, was of course, a model, I mentioned it in my previous video, but a Model 3, a Model X, a Model Y, the Rivian R1T. One car that I did not mention is let me turn off the fan here so we're not getting the noise. One of the cars that I did not mention before was the Volvo S90. That one, I had the upgraded sound system. It was the Bowers & Wilkins sound system. So as far as, setting a bar per se, I felt that the Volvo really set the bar. I mean, that system was truly amazing. And I don't know, there might be something better out there. But to me, that sound system was great. So we're going to set the bar with that, and I'm going to call that 10. If I was to compare my other vehicles, say the Model Y and the Model 3, which are very similar, probably the Model Y would be a little better than my Model 3. And I would probably have to put those at like probably a easy 7, maybe as far as an 8 between the Y and the 3. The Rivian R1T lacked in bass a little bit, which is interesting. I'll tell you here in a minute. But I would say that sound system was for sure, again, like probably a solid 7, maybe an 8 as well. So the other thing to mention is kind of my listening, the way that I listen to music. I think it's important to note, because when you're talking about the sound system, so it's all about the person, right? I mean, it depends on what you like. If you're going to blast your music all the time and you're looking for very, very loudest, banging music, maybe one vehicle suits you better than the other. But my comparison today is typically going to be my rental cars. So when I come back, when I go to the airport or fly out and I rent a car, it's typically your everyday kind of car that you're renting. And if I had to assign a number to a car like, your typical Honda, your typical Toyota Corolla or Camry, those systems are more like a 4 out of the grand scope of things. So not spectacular, not very, they don't have a lot of surround, they don't have a lot of speakers. There's not a kind of a virtual surround sound effect to for lack of a better term. So when I'm comparing to my higher end cars like the Model Y, the Rivian R1T, those it's a very immersive sound. And so that's what I like personally. I would say probably 90% of the time I listen to music at a pretty low volume, maybe 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time, if I'm heading to the gym or something, I might crank it up a little bit. And very, very rarely do I just blast it entirely. There are certain days that I might, of course, but that, like most people. So that's my usage. We just had to talk about that. I think that's important. So kind of setting the baseline here to what we're going to talk about in the sound system. So let me get into sound here. What I want to share with you guys is my impression of what I think in the EV9 is going to be the best sound. Again, this is for my use, remember. So what I like is I like an immersive sound. I like just a warm sound for most of the time. And my impression of the sound system here, let's go through the settings. So my general impression of this sound system is it's a little bit flat. It does lack a little bit of bass. Like, you don't really get the deep bass. It has enough bass, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have a very, very deep bass to it. So what I'm looking for again, 80% of the time is a pretty immersive sound stage per se. And I think I'm getting that much more when I use like the Google CarPlay with my phone. I don't get that with the XM radio. I think XM radio is very flat and it just sounds horrible to me anyway. With Google CarPlay, it's much better. So here's how I set my tune, and then we'll get back to talking about how it sounds. So as far as tone goes, I should not have to do this. You guys watching this video, if you're into audio, into car audio, I should not have to crank the treble and the bass all the way to 10. And that will tell you what you need to know about the sound system in this car being just maybe a little bit underpowered. It's not a very, very powerful system. So I'll rank it here in a minute, but into my other vehicles, but it's not super powerful, but it's not super weak. It splits the difference. It really does. So if you want to get the best sound in this, for me, what I found is treble all the way up. That's going to give you the crisp highs, the bass all the way to 10. Because again, I'm usually listening to it at 70% or less volume, so I'm not over driving the bass on and at very, very low volumes. I wish it had a little more bass. Once you get volume 15, 20, it starts to have enough bass to, I think, make most people happy. Again, this is a family car. This is not a Porsche 911, where you're cranking your tunes running around, right? So, but for everyday use, there's plenty of bass. Not super bassy, but plenty. So I do maximize the treble. I do maximize the bass, and I give it a little bump up to +3 on the mid-range. That's just something that I've done. So what people are maybe, I guess there's just not a lot of reviews on this, but what you should know is if you go into premium sound, if you do have the GT line, I don't know I think the base models are not going to have this necessarily because it's not going to have the Meridian stuff, but there's Meridian, so there's the IntelliQ per se, which is basically volume up or down automatically when you drive. I've got it at a moderate change. That will give you the slightest bit of change when you're, speeding up and so forth. So some other settings here, start at maximum volume. You guys can read that. I just keep that off. I don't mess with that because usually I'm not blasting my tunes anyway. Meridian Horizon customization. Now this is the other thing that I found really important. So this is what changed the sound for me in the EV9 to make it to where it's at today. I played around with this a little bit, and I tend to, so the stereo imaging, what is happening here is when you hit the plus button, it seems to be coming more out of the center channel, and it seems to tone down the front two speakers a little bit. So the speaker over there and the other one I just showed you. So you're getting more out of this, but you would think it's giving you like more immersion, but it's really turning down the volume on those outside. So I don't like to do that. I like to have a nice even volume between the two. That's just for my taste. So I found stereo imaging at 2 to be perfect. And then the immersion as well. You can play around with that for your different music. Immersion, again, I think too much immersion starts to sound too fakey. So splitting the difference here really gave me the sound. So that's the settings, you guys. That's kind of the rundown of the sound system. Yeah, there's no point, again, in playing it because you guys are not going to be able to tell how this thing sounds. You got to trust me when I'm rating this thing. So again, most of the cars that I've mentioned, setting the stage with a level 10 per se, 1 out of 10, 10 being the best. The S90 with the Bowers Wilkins, that's setting the bar at a 10. It had a lot of bass. It was very full, extremely powerful sound system for me anyway. It was pretty amazing. And again, as a reminder, probably Model 3, Model Y, I'm going to rate somewhere in the range of 7, 8 strong. And this sound system, my final review or rating on this would probably be between a 6 and a 7, maybe a 7. If I had to pick, if you put me in a corner and said pick one, I would say probably a 7. It does, again, it has great immersion. It's a little, when you're lower volumes, it's not very powerful at low volumes. Trust me, there can be powerful speakers without having to crank them. If you guys that understand audio will know what I'm talking about. They're pretty weak at low volumes. You kind of need to get into like that 15 range before it starts to sound good. I do like that you can pretty much maximize the volume on this, and it's really not going. You're not going to get a ton of distortion. You may need to go back to the tone. And the other thing I mentioned, if you're still hanging with me on this video, is the position. I did bump one notch back just to get me kind of the best immersion sound. So that is it, you guys. Hopefully this video helps you if you're very curious about, you know, knowing the ins and outs of this sound system as it compares to some other EVs and actually non-EVs. So our Volvo S90 was a hybrid vehicle. That was the gateway for me to get into these EVs from the get-go. So anyway, that's my review, guys. Thanks for watching and have a good day. By the way, I'm going to post some more content here on the EV9. There's so much to cover. It's just crazy. I have to go through each of these things. I got to go through my top items and things that I love, things that I don't love quite as much. And later, I'm going to go out and do some filming for kind of my initial owner impression after trading in a Tesla. So talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.